All right, welcome everyone. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to join here, and then we'll get started. All right, welcome everyone. We're almost at 2 minutes after. We'll go ahead and get started as people keep joining, but welcome. This is the webinar, How to Public Safety Agencies Reclaim Their Time with a Digital Scheduling Solution. We're so excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. We will be hearing from 2 lieutenants from 2 different agencies who will share about their journey from manual, time-consuming scheduling processes to a streamlined digital solution. What challenges did they face? How did they get buy-in? Is it even worth the hassle of changing these processes? So we'll dive into all of that today. So just to dive in with some intros first, my name is Amy Harcourt. I am located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, not too far from Philly. I've been in this role, product marketing role, for about a year now, but I've been working in the public safety tech space for about 8 years. So Lieutenant Duran, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. My name is Lieutenant Duran. I work for the Upland Police Department. Upland is a city in San Bernardino County, which is located in Southern California. I've been here for 20 years and I oversee administrative services.
And Lieutenant Blain? Oh, are you muted?
Yeah, I'm Lieutenant Anthony Blain. I work for the city of Grosse Pointe Park in Michigan. I've been employed here for 22 years. I've done the scheduling for about the last 10 years. And for the last year, I've also been handling payroll.
So starting with Lieutenant Duran, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about Upland?
Yes, so our department has a staff, I see it says approximately 100 staff. We're probably now at about 124 with our staffing. That includes our professional staff and our sworn staff. Prior to us going to a digital format, we did everything by hand. As you can imagine, we run 3 different divisions within this department. We run our field operations, our administrative services, and our support services. Payroll used to be, I'll show you what it used to look like. It used to be on paper, similar to this. Everything was on paper. It was the schedules were on paper, the pay sheets were on paper. If you wanted to put in for overtime, you did it on paper, and if you wanted to put in for time off, you did it on paper. What ended up happening was our executive staff was looking for a better means of scheduling our staff. And in our department, when we look at different products, we have committees that we put together. The committees consist of everybody from staff members to end users, and it includes members that represent each part of our organization. So a dispatcher, someone from records, some of our general staff, our non-sworn, we call them professional staff, and some of our officers. And so they go from vendor to vendor look at products that are offered, and so we started this journey looking for a scheduling software, and it came with a payroll function, and we decided to. Well, we noticed that when you utilize the scheduling portion of it, it also affects the payroll portion. So being that going through the motion would actually eliminate some of the steps that we were going through that were redundant in using paper, we were able to maximize the program to the point where it's actually made not only our scheduling easier, but also our payroll. And it's actually cut a lot of time and helped us check for accuracy, and that's where we are.
Awesome, thank you. Lieutenant Blain?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm with the Grosse Pointe Park Public Safety Department. We're a full-time police and fire department. Everybody here is cross-trained. I mean, as far as the officers are, to do both police and fire work. We do have close to 50 employees. That includes the police department, you know, the officers, the detectives, dispatchers, administration, and crossing guards. I put all of them into power time, and I use that to not only schedule them, but also to do the payroll.
I'm sure some of you know some of the pain points that come with more of a manual scheduling process, or maybe a system that isn't tailored to public safety or the way you do things. But let's dive into a little bit of both of your agencies just to understand better of what your challenges were. So Lieutenant Blain, if you want to start, could you please tell us a little bit about how your agency used to handle your scheduling processes?
We were both A and B. It was a spreadsheet and paper. And generally what I would do is every month I'd have to create the spreadsheet, which meant I had to delete cells, move cells, sometimes move people around. And then once I was finished with that, I'd have to go through it, correct all my errors. And then I would have to take that and I would have to print out the schedule on cardstock paper day by day for the month. And there was only one printer that would print on cardstock, the rest would jam up. And then I'd have to put it into a book. And if somebody wanted time off, they had to fill out a paper slip. They'd have to hand it to the supervisor. The supervisor had to sign that slip. He had to go into the book, make sure the time was available, and paper clip it in there. Same thing with like sick time and anything you needed to do, everything was just done on paper. And it was just like, and then when we had to do our daily timesheets, that was done on paper as well. And then you had to take the paper slip out of the book, and then you had to attach that to the timesheet. And I mean, we were just surrounded by paper all the time. It was prone to errors. I mean, a lot of times slips would get lost, or one would be put in before the other, but this guy was holding on to it, and a supervisor never put it in the book. It was kind of a mess. And we decided to go to a digital system, and it's been nothing but an improvement.
Thank you. Lieutenant Duran, anything you wanted to add about your processes before?
No, our process was very similar to what Lieutenant Blain just described. Same thing. Since the day I started here, it was exactly the same thing. We had a big giant board, and we still have the board, although it's not being used as much in our watch commander's office. And everything was on paper. Our schedules are on paper. Our timesheets were on paper. One of the responsibilities of the supervisor, one of the many responsibilities of the supervisor, is that they had to process payroll daily. So what that means is that every day they had to go into each person's schedule that worked for them, and they had to document the amount of hours that they worked. If there was any time off, they had to manage the time off by utilizing the paper trail and then making sure that we had coverage. And then overtime, of course, one of the biggest challenges is, for some reason, employees tend to forget to put in their overtime or choose to hold off on putting in their overtime. And so it creates a kind of a validation error if they submit it, 2 pay periods later. And, when we take that part of payroll, we then take it to our budget specialist, and our budget specialist then has to take all that information and transpose it onto an Excel sheet. And we're talking 124, 125 employees. So it is very time consuming. It would take her, a good 3 days to get everything done. And then from there, she has to send it to the city, and city finance then verifies the information, takes the information, enters it into the payroll software off of the Excel sheet, and then that's how they ended up paying us. So going to this system really just, first of all, it made the scheduling portion so easy, because once you get the scheduling in, it updates every other part of it. So for that, it cut down a lot of time, and we were able to create that same spreadsheet that she would have, that my budget specialist would have to put together at the end. It's all created based off the schedule and overtime and time off slips. So it definitely helped us.
So we understand what some of the challenges were, but how did you take that next step? So what was it that allowed your agency to kind of get the approval for software or make that change? Lieutenant Blain, if you want to go ahead and start with this one.
Yeah, quite simply, I was up doing a printing out like the schedule for the month, you know, feeding paper and cardstock paper into this printer, and the chief walked by, and that's what I was doing. And I said, this is just the way that we do things here. And he suggested that I look into some digital options, and he said, try to find me, you know, a few different quotes and give me an idea what you think is the best and submit it to me, and then we'll go with it. So I did. I looked at about 4 to 5 different products, and PowerTime really had everything that I need. Either some were prohibitively expensive, or some didn't have the features that I needed, and PowerTime was just kind of like right there in the middle. I mean, it had all the features that I needed at a good price. And when I presented that to my chief, I gave him a big write-up of all the features and everything, and he said it sounded good, and we went with it, and we never looked back. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Lieutenant Duran, anything to add there?
I wish I could take credit for finding the system, but I actually walked into this after the process was already started. I promoted after we began the process, and I wasn't involved in the selection process. But as soon as I took over this position, I became the person in charge of the process. So I did a little research to find out how we ended up here. And, you know, we have a fairly new administration. And one of the things that my chief is big about is keeping up with the trends. Technology moves very quickly. And the days of doing it the old way are out the window. You have to keep up with technology. And I do know that we did have a committee that went in and researched different options, and they picked this one. Although I didn't get to see a lot of the other options, I have met people that have worked at other cities that utilize some of the other options, and they used them because their city was already using these options. And they've told me that this is actually a very easy system to use comparatively. And to be honest with you, that's the only verification that I could get, because they've actually been the end user on both sides. So that's pretty much how we ended up here.
Awesome. And I think you had mentioned at one point about kind of the buy-in in regards to internally. So getting the end users on board, getting, you know, from the top down, kind of how important it was to, and how you got buy-in throughout. Anything else to add in that regard?
Sure. You know, I think every agency, any organization, doesn't have to be law enforcement, but any organization is going to face the same challenge. Oftentimes people don't like the way things are, but the minute that you suggest change, they don't like change either. I think people are afraid of change because it's the unknown for them. People like what they know because they become proficient, and it makes them feel as if they're in control. So getting buy-in on changing to this system, I don't think it was a problem with the staff, the executive staff per se, because our committee selected the product, and the committee was able to demo different products. So they went with the one that they thought would be the easiest to use and the one that people would like the most. Once we got it, then we had to go through the implementation phase, and that is a difficult phase, because anytime you're implementing a system for any size organization, it's going to take time. and the organization needs to learn how to navigate around the system. And then the next step that we took was to start beta testing it, because of course, when you're dealing with payroll, one of the biggest things you want to be careful with is that you don't screw somebody's paycheck up. People don't, they rely on their pay, and they're not happy if their pay is messed up. So we beta tested the system, and I utilized one of my units, and we ran it concurrent with paper to see how accurate the what we call it, the end code report, the report that we submit to finance. We ran it comparatively to the other report, the old paper way, just to see if we were being consistent. Ironically, the system actually found minor errors that we probably would have missed, errors that were not in the favor of our budget specialists, because these are just, human error mistakes that happen. And so, once we became confident that the system actually did work, then it was a matter of getting everybody else on board and getting the supervisors to understand what they need to do, and getting the employees to understand what they need to do, and getting everybody, together. And then from there, the next challenge was dealing with City Hall, because they were not confident in what we were providing. And so I demoed the system for them so that they could see what we were looking at, and showed them the reports. And they did ask me for different types of reports, and I was able to provide those reports for them. So once they became confident with it, we just got to the point where we said, okay, we're going to go paperless. Let's pull the Band-Aid off of this and let's go with it. And I think that was the biggest scare. But I think we beta tested it to the point where we felt very confident, and we moved forward with it. And we have not looked back since we did it, and it's been going great.
Awesome, thank you. And that kind of leads me into the next slide. When we were talking about, so you got the buy-in, you're using the scheduling software, talking about after the after parts. But Lieutenant Blain, I think you had something to add too on what would you say the hardest adjustment was? What did the transition look like for your agency?
Well, the hardest thing was I think with anything is just getting people trained on it. Especially the supervisors, because they're the ones that are going to handle it the most. Your end users, your officers, they're going to do two things. They're going to probably submit overtime, and they're going to submit days off. They may use it to verify their timesheet, but that's just once every 2 weeks, depending on how your pay goes. But as far as the training the supervisors, not everybody's going to be computer literate. Not everybody's comfortable with it. Some people like to do it the old way, just like, Mo was saying, they don't like change. But I think, just getting them to do it properly, I just did it in phases. I said, okay, for the first 2 weeks, I just want you to, do, time off requests, approve those. But we're also going to keep doing it on the paper method. And that's just kind of what we did. We did both methods at the same time until they were confident enough. And then I would, at the end of the week or whatever, I would double check and make sure everything matched up. And if it didn't, you have to call them out, and just tell them, hey, look, you did it here, but you didn't do it here, one or the other. And after time, they started to get it. And then once we were done with that, we moved on to other things, like we would just take one thing at a time, entering vacations or whatever it might be. And then once you do it step by step, you eventually take the paper away, and they're stuck with it, and they have to keep it up. But I think if you try to give them everything at once, they're going to forget it. They're going to be confused. But if you just do it piece by piece, and then once you introduce something new, take something else away, everybody got trained up on it pretty well. And we started with errors at the beginning, and now it runs pretty flawlessly. You get them once in a while, because you get that one rogue supervisor who just kind of does his own thing sometimes, but you always end up catching that. And it's easy to catch in the system, so I can fix it from home or on my phone or wherever I'm at. I can take care of that issue and let him know what he did. So
Thank you. So That was kind of the hardest parts, is rolling it out, it sounds like, in training and getting everyone up to speed. What about what has changed for the better since you've, or maybe expanding on, because we did talk about a couple so far, but Lieutenant Duran, do you have anything you want to add with what's changed for the better since you've moved to a software solution?
I will say processing payroll has gotten faster. I can tell you, and it was weird because my budget specialist was retiring right after we went full live. So her retiring, a new budget specialist that had never worked at a police department coming in, and we got lucky, we got a really good one. The transition, I thought right there was going to be a little bit off, and I was prepared to help as much as I could. But it really was not that hard. You know, if she were here right now, she'd tell you it's actually very easy. She's managed to go into the system because she's one of the we only have 3 administrators in the department, myself being one, my budget specialist being a second, and then my budget specialist is backup. And it was actually between the 3 of us, we were able to figure out a lot of things. It's a very intuitive system. It's very simple. It is very forgiving. If a mistake is made, it's very easy to fix the mistake. So you know, that goes to what Anthony was saying about being able to do anything from anywhere. The old way that we were doing it, it would create overtime. Whether my budget specialist wanted it or not, it was creating overtime, because in our department, we would have to submit payroll to the budget specialist on the Thursday of the 2nd week, correct? If that makes sense. So, but remember, we still have a shift that works on the weekend. So her goal would be to process all that payroll before Monday. And then on Sunday, which is normally her day off, she would come in and work mandatory overtime to process the remainder of the payroll, so we could get payroll completed and sent to HR by 10 a.m. on Monday morning, the week of payroll. Well, it was getting to the point where it was getting harder and harder to handle, and she wasn't getting it to City Hall until late in the day, sometimes into the next day. And that does create a problem. Switching to this, the very first time we ran a payroll report by ourselves, it literally was 5 hours total, and this is with the learning curve for the majority of our employees. And then the weekend employees, it took us not even an hour. And then we sent that information in, and it really reduced the amount of necessary overtime to cover, you know, getting payroll to City Hall. And they were happy with us getting it to them on time and with virtually no errors.
Awesome, thank you. What about you, Lieutenant Blain? Anything else you wanted to add for kind of the positives that's come out of the software switching?
Well, I know that, you know, we have less errors, that's for sure. Because prior to that, you know, we would send the timesheets upstairs to our secretary. She would have to log into the payroll software just under like the timesheet section that she had access to. She had to enter everybody's hours for every single day. It's something she did every morning. And then she had to file all the time off slips in a drawer to keep track of them. And it just caused errors. And with this, you know, like as you're doing the schedule, it's also doing your payroll. If you use that option, it's just optional. But if you do use it, for me, payroll is simple. I mean, I have to do payroll now. It was something that I didn't do before. So this cost me a little bit more work, but it's very simple. I export it into an Excel file. I log into the timesheet program. I import it and I just check it really quick. It takes me about 20 minutes and payroll is submitted to the city and it's done. Whereas it used to take the secretary probably a half hour every day to enter all these in one by one. You know, now it's done in one shot in 20 minutes. So now she's free to do more things. So, and we have less errors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Anything from the end user perspective? I know you're both really involved in payroll and that sort of thing, but anything like that your officers or anyone has said from their perspective of how they've
Yeah, I can say that they really like it. They don't have to call and see if time's available from home. They don't have to like fill out slips. They don't have to worry about someone putting one in on paper before they get there the next day. They can just look at their phone. They can look at their PC. They can be anywhere. They can be at the grocery store. They can be on their couch. They can access this, see if time's available. They can put a slip in, and they've got the next day off because they just get a notification back on their phone that says their time off was approved or declined. They can just do that at any time, and they know if the time's available or not just by looking at their phone or their computer. They just love the accessibility of it, just to be able to see their schedule ahead of time. It's kind of nice if you're at home trying to make an appointment for something. You could say, give me 1 second, look on your phone. Yep, I'm not working that day. It could be 3 months in the future. You never know if you have a rotating schedule. They can look and within 15 seconds know if they're available that day. So yeah, they really enjoy that. I've actually gotten pretty positive feedback from the officers about it.
Awesome, thank you. And going to back to the timekeeping, on our next slide, we actually have kind of a view of what that looks like split out. So Lieutenant Duran, I know you had some unique situations in the state of California with how you need to separate out time. So just to clarify before you dive in a little bit into that, this system that you're both using, PowerTime, it will split out all the hours. It'll create an export for you. It's not going to be a payroll system. It won't have rates and things in it. This system will collect your scheduled hours and overtime, et cetera, for you to then pass to payroll. So I just want to clarify that for everyone on the call. But Lieutenant Duran, do you mind, without going too much in the weeds, just explain a little bit about what has changed there since moving to the system in regards to the timekeeping?
Well, the timekeeping will show, and if you see on the screen, it shows shift differential, shift overtime, based on how your categories are named. Your shift are your normal hours, so it'll show that. Your shift differential, certain people get paid shift differential in our department, others don't. So it only applies to certain people, which you could set in the settings. So the system will figure that part out by itself. And then of course there's overtime. In California, we have some differences. I don't know how some other states work, but with our professional staff, they have the ability to, if they go out on medical, or let's say workers' comp, they have the ability to get paid through workers' comp up to 66% of their pay, and then they're entitled to do 33% through their leave banks. And so, we figured out a way to make it work, and it's important because we're able to account for 80 hours per pay period, and we're able to break it down so the system will actually show it. And like I said, it's intuitive. It's just is a way to figure it out, and it's not really that hard if you take the time to just go through it. And it's very appealing. So it's not like you're looking at a bunch of tabs that you're not going to feel comfortable with. It's actually very easy to use. So our employees have the ability to pull up their timesheets, and then when we submit payroll, we submit the encode report along with the timesheets. And the timesheets are verified. So the employees will click a button to verify their time once they make sure that their time is correct. Their supervisor will click on it after them, and then our payroll admin will double check, triple check everything, and then they click on it, and then all of that goes to finance, and it's very simple.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I know you're talking about the nuances in California. Just the system is flexible. Every department's a little bit different, handles time a little bit differently. So it can get pretty complex, but the good news is that it is flexible to kind of handle a couple different situations. So, but another thing scheduling software can offer is more accessibility. So if we go to the next slide, it could be in the form of a mobile app similar to PowerTime. So here's an example of PowerTime on mobile, but for you, Lieutenant Blain and Lieutenant Duran, what are the realistic benefits here that you've seen? I know you mentioned about timesheets. They can, sign off on their timesheets here. They can submit time off. But anything in regards to the mobile app or accessibility, anything else you wanted to mention there?
I love the fact that you can access it anywhere. It is cloud-based. So one of the big things that we worry about in California is, does it make your phone discoverable, right? Nobody wants to use their personal phone because they don't want it to be discoverable. Well, the information's on the cloud-based app. So it doesn't matter if you're using it from your personal phone, your work phone, your work computer, whatever. It tracks the information. So it doesn't necessarily make your phone open to discovery in the future. The app, you can literally save the link on your Google taskbar. And if you log on from any computer and log into your Google taskbar, it's already there. You can access it on your phone, your work phone, your personal phone. You can access it on multiple platforms at the same time. It doesn't restrict you. And if you do use your phone, if you just turn it sideways, it goes into desk mode. Because of course people will use it on the desktop first and they'll get used to it, and then they go to the app and it looks a little bit different, but the minute they flip it sideways, it goes right into desk mode. It's smaller print, so those of us that have older eyes might have trouble looking at it without magnifying it, but it's available, and you could do it anywhere. I do it from home when I work remotely. I do it from home when I'm just double checking and making sure that payroll is going the way it's supposed to be going. You know, I could do it on the go. I could go somewhere and if I go to eat and I decide to check on it, I can check on it. It's not a problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Lieutenant Blain, anything else to add there?
Yeah, one thing that I would add on that one of the features that I like about the phone app is that if, you know, we have somebody calls off sick last minute, and, you know, we can send out an alert. And if they have the app installed on their phone, they'll get a push notification that, hey, we've got overtime available tonight. So it kind of gets them mentally prepared for that overtime call coming in. It lets them kind of figure out like, hey, do I have time to go out, rather than just that surprise call and they have to make that 1 second decision whether they can come in or not. It gives them a little bit of time ahead of time to know. And the other thing is, if we need to just send out a mass message to everybody, you can do that from PowerTime using the message feature. You can push that out to, it'll go to the mobile app, it'll go to text message, and you can send it out via email. So there's 3 different options where you can send out a what's quote unquote blast to people and let them know like, hey, something's going on or we might need somebody. So it's kind of nice to have that.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just to wrap up kind of summary on, if we could go to the next slide, why digital solutions? So we kind of touched on this throughout, but the top benefits kind of scheduling software, keeping everyone informed, reducing those errors when it comes to payroll and things like that, saving time. So if there's anything else in summary, Lieutenant Duran, that you wanted to add about digital solution and why kind of the switch has benefited your agency.
As I said, the future is technology. Technology changes quickly. You have to pick something that works. You have to pick something that's user-friendly. You have to pick something that's flexible. And in my opinion, although I didn't view a lot of the other products, I'm very happy with this product. I'm sure that with time, there'll be even more improvements. Every agency is looking for something different in a product, and I'm sure something that Lieutenant Blain's agency might be looking at and might request might be something that we could use, or maybe not. But it's very customizable, so it makes it worth using.
Awesome. Thanks. Lieutenant Blain, anything else to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, you know, the software does have a slight learning curve to it, but, you know, for the end users, it's very simple. For the supervisors that will be doing it, they're known as power users. They're only going to handle just maybe like 3 or 4 functions, whether it be approving time off, approving sick time, moving people around, things like that, or deleting shifts. It's not that hard once you get everybody. If you train them right, it's not bad. And the administrators, it can be a little overwhelming because there's so many options within it. But like I said, I mean, you're only going to use, I'd be surprised if you used half of the features that were available to you. I think one department might use these and another department won't. But once you learn the system, you realize that it has a lot to offer. It's at a good price point. In the end, it saves you a lot of time because you're getting rid of, you have less clutter, you have less paper around. Again, the employees really enjoy the accessibility of being able to see their time off at any time, knowing that time's available. And the other one other great thing about it is, you know, if you ever wanted to track an employee's sick time usage or their time off, you know, you can look at that. You can say, hey, I want to look at their sick time. It'll tell you like, hey, this person called off, you know, on a Monday, Tuesday, but they've called off on 5 Fridays, you know. I mean, you can customize that to find out if there's a trend, if they're just calling in sick on the weekends, if they're taking every Saturday off, you know, taking time off, but then also using sick time on Saturday. There's a lot to it that you can use to, you know, you can run a lot of different reports as far as time off, balances, things like that. Sometimes the city wants to know how much time somebody has in their comp banks. They have to pay them out. It's like, I can run you a report in 10 seconds that'll show you everybody's comp time balance, and you can just pay that out, you know. So there's a lot of features that only benefit you, they benefit the employees, and they can benefit the finance office as well. They can benefit your chief if he wants to, you know about any time of, you know, person's personal time off. There's a lot that you can do with the system. I mean, it's almost endless, really. There's no information that you can't find in there. So.
Absolutely. And you both kind of mentioned about, you know, implementing the tough part, the change. And I don't remember, I know Lieutenant Duran, you said you were understaffed at the time of implementing. Lieutenant Blain, I'm not sure, but what you're mentioning the process, so kind of splicing it out into steps and slowly rolling things out. So if there's any, if you can elaborate a little bit on either one of you, kind of what that process looked like and how you successfully got through that.
Well, I wish I would have talked to Lieutenant Blain before I jumped in here, because he actually, I think he had more time with the system, and he did it probably the way I would recommend to do it. And I'll let him explain that part. For us, it was a little bit difficult because we kind of did a train the trainer with the supervisors, but it took a while for us to implement the system. So by the time it came down to implementing the system, people had already forgotten what they did. So if I were to recommend, I would say start with your administrators and maybe 1 or 2 power users being your supervisors that don't have administrative rights. And then from there, you can start building it out, because you're gonna find things, right? Like the terminology is you can adjust it, right? You can label it different. But when I look at the terminology that's already there, it may not mean the same thing to me as it does over there in Michigan. So you know, that adds to the learning curve. But once you know what you can and cannot do and what you can customize and make it to match what you already have, then the rest of the process is really, really easy, because people are already used to the process. They just need to see it on a computer as opposed to paper. So I would recommend that you start with train the trainers first, and then from there work your way. Lieutenant Blain, if you want to go into your process, that would make sense.
Yeah, you know, I kind of already told you about how, you know, I would have them do one thing on both, you know, digitally and paper, then slowly take it away. You train them in one thing. My suggestion is, you know, you should have 2 administrators, one on one side of the department, one on the other. I mean, we work to where there's, you know, 2 shifts at work on one side and 2 on the other. But first I had to kind of learn the system. I learned everything that I could about it. And then I slowly kind of trained another person on the other side of the department. So, because otherwise you're going to be doing half of this stuff at home. You know, people are going to be calling you, I don't know what to do, this and that. But once you get everybody trained, it generally runs pretty smooth. You're always going to have that one guy though, you know, that can always cause problems. So you have to go in and fix it. But there's a good way you can track all the changes that are made in this. So you'll know exactly who that was. And one of the things that I did, because I was the only administrator at the time, was I created a binder, and I put in different tabs, and I labeled them, you know, time off, shift switches, overtime, training, etc. And what that was so if I wasn't around or I wasn't available, I kept myself available, but I wanted them to, hey, look, you know, somebody's trying to do a shift switch. So I let the supervisors go into the book, and I just kind of did it like on a Word document. I said, these are the steps that you take to make the shift switch. And they went through it and they did it step by step. So they can always reference this book and basically say, like, okay, it's written down there. And if they can still manage to mess it up, believe me. But for the most part, they got it right. It was all there. They didn't. Or you get one guy's like, well, I didn't feel like opening the book. It's like, well, thank you. You know, so you're going to get that. But after a while, they'll eventually learn it. And it's not hard. It's just, it's because, like I said, you have some people that are computer illiterate or some people that don't like change. But after a while, they'll all get it. And now, I mean, I might have 1 or 2 errors a month, and they're so easy to find, you know, and they're just simple mistakes, you know. But other than that, it's pretty easy to implement, you know, as long as you take it step by step, I think.
Awesome, thank you. So the next slide, just really quick, I think we have a couple policy, Power DMS, Power Policy customers on the call. So just wanted to touch on this really quick. If you do have policy and you purchase time, there is the option for a common login, which means you just have one username and password, and then you have kind of that app switcher. So you could easily switch from one to the other, but that you can definitely find more from support, customer service, or, you know, our sales team can give us a call. But next slide. And so after this webinar, we will provide you with the 2 case studies from the lieutenants here with us today. A little tour of the system. So it's right on our website, actually, if you do want to navigate to it ahead of time. It is accessible, but it just lets you click around in the system just to see kind of what it would be like. We'll send out that link and then a copy of these slides and the recording as well for your reference going forward. Thank you so much, everyone that joined. Thank you, Lieutenant Blain, Lieutenant Duran, for taking the time today to share with us your journey here. We really appreciate it. But yeah, that's all we have for you today. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.